Good morning. Thank you for the invitation. It was Heather that said, have you got something about the early church? I've got two words, talking and eating. But to pad it out a bit, I've got a title, Turbocharged Gossip and Beaming Lights. Well, most of us know what a turbo is. It's when you press a button, you get more energy going into the combustion, which creates a greater force. So it's forceful gossip. But when I looked up the word gossip, it's an old English word, God sip. And it means God parent. And there were secret conversations with people around the godparents and the child. And then, of course, later on, it became a rather nasty, slanderous, evil word. And by the time it got into the Bible, it's a bad thing. However, when you research it, they say that there's 75% of gossip is neutral and the rest might be positive or negative. So how about turbocharged Jesus gossip as well as beaming lights? I'm going to say Bokatov, because if you're in Jerusalem or Joppa or Lydda, where these three readings are taken from, at the time when Peter was wandering around the streets, can you please be a bird for the moment and look over the streets? Because what you might notice is people coming out in one street, laying down mattresses and beds, and then bringing people out, putting them on the mattresses and beds. Now, what on earth would make anybody who's sick in bed, in their bedroom, want to be lifted out and exposed in a public place? Could it be turbocharged gossip about Jesus? Faith-filled, hope-filled, love-filled gossip that would persuade the sick person who's feeling poorly to say, oh, all right, put me out on the street. The reason given, miracles were happening and Peter just might pass by and the shadow might just fall on them and Jesus just might heal them. Turbocharged gossip, I would say, caused this. Interesting, isn't it? But let's just fly over now to Joppa on the coast, present day Yaffo, good place to go to if you want to see the sea. And we know four things about Tabitha: a woman who did charitable good works for others around her, a disciple of Jesus who lived in Joppa and was dead, washed, dressed, ready for burial, and laid in an upper room. Now, the thing is, in Jewish custom, you have to bury people within 24 hours. If you can do it before the 24 hours, all the good. Now, God-filled gossip. These women who were sad, overcome with grief, and were wailing and crying and talking about what good Tabitha had done for them, they could have just said, oh, well, we've got to go to a funeral now. That's normal, isn't it? But turbocharged gossip, faith-filled, joy-filled, hope-filled, love-filled gossip said, no, 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 no. They sent two men. I think this is rather funny. They sent two men to go hot-footing it all the way to Lydda. Now, Lydda is 16 kilometres away, or 9.9 miles. How long would that take you? They were willing to go. You see, something inside them compelled them to do it. Because they could have said to these women, no, 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 let's just carry her out and bury her, because that's the normal thing to do. But no, they went. Now, when they got to Lydda, Lydda was a town. They had to go rummaging around. Do you know where Peter is? I've heard that Peter's in town. Where is he? Where is he? We're in a hurry. Do you know where he might be? Now, Peter might have been in the middle of a sermon. He might have been in the middle of a dinner. We don't know. But, you know, when they met Peter, they must have said, Peter, we've got a situation. Oh, yes. Well, this lady's dead. Oh, right. Do you see? The Holy Spirit moving. God turbocharged gossip. They were urgent. They were filled with hope. They were filled with expectation. They were filled with love, weren't they? Is this turbocharged gossip? Well, Peter went, hot-footing it, 9.9 miles all the way to Jaffa. So those poor men done 20-mile round trip. And he goes in, he meets the women, he gets to see the garments. And then, of course, he sends them out the room. I think this is amazing. The next thing, he knelt down. Now, we know that Jews stand up often to pray. That was the custom, but they could kneel down as well. He knelt down. What was going through Peter's mind? Was it the Jairus story, one he met, when he was there, when Jesus raised Jairus' daughter from the dead? Was it the Lazarus story? Peter didn't put the spirit of Tabitha back into Tabitha. Jesus must have done it. And then Peter says, Tabitha, arise. And she wakes up and she gets up. Now, here's the thing about more turbocharged gossip. He brings Tabitha downstairs to meet the ladies. Can you imagine the gossip? When they eventually went home, who they spoke to, what did they say? Because what we do know is recorded, that the whole town got to hear about it. And here's the marvelous thing of Jesus. Pagans who were surrounding Joppa, filled in Joppa, they had no certainty about life after death. It was a mystery and it was a scary thing, and you don't think about it. Now, what is the turbocharged gossip now? Jesus has the power over death. There is resurrection. There is life. And what was the central message of Christianity other than the resurrection? Turbocharged gossip. Not just idle gossip, not just casual gossip, not just quiet gossip, but turbocharged, enthusiastic, love-filled, joy-filled, hope-filled. I think I'm labouring the point, but you know what I mean. Well, the other thing is about meals. I've got a fabulous book. It's one of my treasures called The Early Christians. And this is a book of original documents from the first 200 years translated into that book. And I love it. It's all about what the Christians did, what they believed, what impact they made on the Roman world. And one of the sections is about their meetings. And their meetings were full on a weekly basis. They would have apostles teaching. They would sing hymns, which were the Psalms. They would say prayers, which they could make up. There might be some spiritual gifts expressed. There was order, by the way, because Paul, as we know, talked about there being some sense of order. And then there would be a meal. And then there would be the bread and wine. So it's a composite. So many things. It must have taken hours, and they met in homes because, as we know, there weren't churches for the first 300 years. So the setting is informal. It's housebound. How big was the group of people? Probably not very many, unless you were one of those Romans that had a great villa and you had an inner courtyard and you could pack in 100 people. But by and large, it was quite small, probably. But all these things would happen in the weekly event, which was actually on a Sunday. They celebrated on a Sunday. That's not including the Jews before the temple was destroyed in AD 70. So these meetings filled with opportunity for conversation. I mean, what do you do when you're eating? You talk. So you can encourage one another. Turbocharge gossip again. You give your testimony of how Jesus answered a prayer, and then you might pray for that person who's sitting opposite you. Enthusiastic, faith-filled, love-filled, joy-filled gossip. That's what I mean. Now, we can do that. Probably we do that. And there wasn't any internet. There weren't any smartphones. They gossip the gospel around their streets, around their neighbours. Now, I've been really, really challenged by this daily. Am I fearful? Yes, I am, in some contexts. Do I speak with a turbocharged gossip about Jesus? No, I don't in some ways. But is that the way the gospel was spread? Well, in the early church. Now, here's the thing. Michael Green, I don't know if you know him, Canon Michael Green. He died in 2019. But one of his hot topics, he wrote 50 books, by the way, was evangelism in the early church. I've got the paperback. I haven't read it yet, haven't had time. But here's a comment that he made. One of the greatest tragedies of the ossifying Western church is that people do not talk about Jesus. What an observation, what a conclusion, what an indictment. I'll leave that with you because it certainly pierces my heart. Now, if this is an encouragement or not, I don't know, but last Thursday, I went to see two Christian friends I don't often see in a hotel lobby, and we had coffee. And it's a very popular place, so there are plenty of people sitting in the local tables around us. And we were talking about prayer and the second coming of the Lord. What if people heard that? Would that be an opportunity? Interesting, isn't it? Anyway, I want to move on and finish because we've got communion, which is wonderful. I want to finish with a psalm that's really got to me, Psalm 71. And if you're making any notes, the only thing I ask you to write down is Psalm 71. And I will talk about beaming lights in a moment too. This is what the prayer, one verse says in Psalm 71. And even when I'm old and grey-headed, O God, I like the humour there, do not abandon me until I declare your mighty strength to this generation, your power to all who are to come. Your righteousness, O God, reaches to the heavens. You have done great things, O God. Who is like you? That's an amazing psalm. It's, well, obviously that's only one verse, really. Until I declare your mighty strength. Well, I'm over 50. I'm not quite grey-haired. But that desire, I'm sure we have that desire, don't we? Until we declare, we pass on to the next generation. But God has to make us turbocharged. And I honestly believe that's the Holy Spirit giving us the desire. I read yesterday about what one woman wrote about the love of God. And one word struck me. God's love is a force. Never thought of it as a force. God's heart, full of love, is like a force that comes to people. And if his love can be a force in my heart that's got to get out, then maybe I will do some turbocharged gossip. What about beaming lights? Well, the verse that we read out says it all, doesn't it? Let your light so shine before men that they may see and glorify your Father in heaven. There's a lot one could say. I want to say one thing. We are mobile temples, aren't we? Holy Spirit living inside us. We are mobile temples. People can come to us and just the light of Jesus, the presence of Jesus in us, can touch them just by meeting us. Just by meeting us. They're coming into the presence of the living God inside of us. It's a holy, holy thing, isn't it? We don't have to strive. Just have to let the force of God's love shine out. I've got a lot to learn in this. but I also want to be one of those that can pass on the good news. So next time you read Acts, maybe use your imagination a little bit more and think of it in terms of people, what it took for them to do these things. Those two men walking 20-mile round trip, and then the miracle of Tabitha coming back to life. Or Paul walking around with a handkerchief, and then someone grabs it and puts it on a sick person and they're well. I mean, really, seriously? I'll leave it with you. Thank you.